Good morning to all my Aussie viewers, and good evening to any of our American followers as well. We're going to have a really interesting show today. We had a little bit of trouble yesterday and with our sound, so Julia Foley is actually going to rejoin me today, and we're going to be talking about all things borderline personality disorder, the labels. Anyway, we're going to talk about the traits and the myths, and we're going to be going through a few different things and seeing whether Julia thinks that they're accurate according to her story, because everyone's on such a big spectrum and there's such huge varying degrees of each sort of diagnosis that it's sometimes tricky. So I'm just waiting for Julia to come in. Hi, Overcoming OCD. So, okay, so Julia's in now, and let's see if we can get her to come in. Okay, wonderful. Let's see. Let's just all keep our fingers crossed. Her. Hi, Overcoming. So that's just saying we're waiting for Julia here. Now, if this... Okay, can you hear me? No? All right. I'm going to jump in. Okay, so just going to go in and see if we can bring Julia back. We had a lot of trouble with this yesterday, so looks like we're having similar trouble today. But I'm just going to keep jumping on and off until it actually works, because this is what we had to do yesterday and it eventually worked. It's very annoying for anyone who's watching. I'm so sorry. That Instagram, it's very interesting. It's the only person who I've actually had trouble talking to and having sound with on this show. So let's see how we go now. Okay. Nope.
Wait, am I connected?
Oh, I think I can hear her. Good morning. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, your connection's not great. Hi, Maya.
Hold, should I grab my Wi-Fi thing?
Okay, I can hear you. Julia.
I'm gonna grab my Wi-Fi thing really quick and
Okay.
just so it's like closer to me. Not that I don't know if that'll help, but it's worth a try.
Okay.
I just got home. My cat is like all over me.
Okay, mine's sound asleep out there. Oh, look. Hi, Kitty. Andy the cat.
I know, baby. Okay. I'm gonna just...
So that's really, really wonderful.
What's that?
Oh, we had so much trouble yesterday, didn't we? At least I don't have that feedback going on now, and we can actually have a decent conversation that people can hear.
Oh my God, I know. It's not like I'm getting any... When I watched the one from last night, when I like rewatched it, it was like horrible. Like the way your voice is coming in, but it didn't sound like that when we were live. Like I could hear what you were saying, but it's kind of crackly. But then I watched the replay. I'm like, oh my gosh! Like this is what people were hearing. I was like, how could they make anything out?
Yeah, yeah.
But let me have the Wi-Fi thing, so I'll be right back.
Okay. So I've just noticed that Maya, you've come in. So I haven't talked to you for so long. So it's really nice to see you in here. So basically what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about borderline personality disorder, and we're going to talk about the epigenetics as well, and how things that our previous ancestors have actually experienced affect our DNA, and it comes through with us, and sometimes we're just so confused as to why we act like we do. So we're going to talk a little bit about epigenetics, and I'm just going to type in here that we're just having a BPD convo today, and then I've just got to figure out how to pin it, so I'm not quite sure how to pin it. So
the only issue that I'm having right now is I can hear you like very clearly, like you're not like crackling or anything like that, but the way like it's like really silent, like it's really... I don't know if it's like a volume thing on your end or on my end or...
Okay. Okay, is that better if I talk like that?
Try talking.
Okay, so I'm just testing this now. Is that better if I've got the microphone? All right, what if I
No, but
take it
actually, I could
out?
probably put on headphones. Maybe that will help.
Okay, yeah, let's try
I
that.
just have to take my medicine
Yeah.
real quick and then.
Okay, let's do that too.
What's that?
Now, I wonder how you... I'm just trying to figure out how to pin this, like the fact that we're talking about BPD today, so I'm not sure how to pin it. Okay. And one of my friends has just joined, Leanne. Good morning, Leanne. She's down in Victoria in Australia. So, hi, you.
Let me headphones I needed.
Yes. So, okay, so we're just starting now, actually, Leanne. And Maya, how are you? I haven't seen you for so long or heard from you for so long, so it's so nice to have you in here.
Sorry, my camera's like flying all over. Oh my goodness, Andy. He's crazy. Oh, I have to feed him. I have not dinner. I'll do that after. It's okay. He'll be fine. Okay. Oh, this is much better. Wow.
Okay, can you hear me a lot? Can you hear me okay? Yeah?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Is this good?
So I've been thinking, a few of the people who are on today probably don't know that we did a live yesterday that had the worst sound we've ever recorded, so we've had to do it again today. But I think that that's actually a plus for us because I've been thinking about some of the things that we were talking about. So, and I wanted to just go over the fact that I think that you are so amazing. You're 21, you're living with borderline personality disorder, which is a massive label that a lot of people don't understand. And you're in a relationship with a really, really cute guy who's really very, very supportive of you. And one of the things that you mentioned is the fact that even though you live with some mental health challenges, he actually goes and does research around it to understand it, and he can support you, and he can work with you, and he just basically puts in all of this effort, and you put in all this effort into your relationship. And I just wanted to sort of go back over that because I think that in this day and age with the 50% divorce rate and everything and the mental health challenges going through the roof, to have a young couple who's actually becoming really empowered, doing research around your different, I'm sure he has challenges as well, but to be able to talk about them and work through them and support each other is just so amazing. And I think, like I said yesterday, being a psychotherapist, I see a lot of people who are not being very nice to each other, who are married and et cetera, et cetera. So to be able to see somebody your age who's coming through and doing this amount of work is really inspiring. And I just wanted to validate you in that and to let other people know, especially if you're single and you're sitting at home and you've got some mental health challenges yourself, that there are people out there who are open to walking with you. And I just wanted to get you to talk a little bit about maybe some of the things that you guys do, Julia, together, because I think it's really, really important because young people listen to this conversation as well. And I think a lot of the girls that I talk to are sitting at home going, how is anyone ever going to love me? Like, yeah, and I think that you might have found the magic ingredient.
I mean, like, it's definitely not like, you know, like any relationship, I think, with or without BPD, you know, there's always ups and downs and, you know, things you have to work out. And, you know, the biggest thing, I mean, that I've found that helps is communication. And in the beginning, that was really tough for me because I'd never been in a relationship that had, you know, where both partners communicated and, you know, or even just one of us, because I didn't know how to do that. So then Connor came along, and he was like kind of like a breath of fresh air because he just naturally knew how to like talk to me. Like when I had a problem or something, or he had a problem, he felt safe enough to talk to me about it. And you know, it's always kind of uncomfortable at first talking about anything. Sorry, my cat is like right in my way, trying to just do crazy stuff. Indy, go. Stop. He's like pawing at me. I'm sorry. Kitten. But
don't be sorry. The world would be a terrible place without our animals. Terrible.
I know. He's literally right here clawing at my hand. I'm just letting him so he could just have something to play with. Ow. But yeah, I think like the secret that keeps it working is just talking about things. Even, I mean, just for an example, over the weekend, this past weekend, I had a really bad like episode because I was, my friend saw something that indicated that I wasn't well, like I was feeling suicidal. And so she reached out to Connor, and then Connor came back and talked to me, and he's like, you know, I'm taking you to the hospital. And I was totally frustrated. I was like, I'm not going to the hospital. I don't need to go. Da, da, da. I was being very like, you know, resistant to go. So he ended up calling 911, and the police forced me to go. And I was compliant. I didn't like fight it or anything like that. But I was super angry because rather than like talk to me first, he just decided to call the cops. And I understand why he did it now because he was concerned. And but at the time I was like, well, why wouldn't you just talk to me? So like when we got home, we kind of got into a little argument or whatever, and we just weren't understanding each other because I was still in like really high emotion mind, and I was just like mad at everybody, and I was just like, I wanted to do, and I didn't want to go to the hospital, and I was forced to. But and I was being actually like, you know, I was lashing out at him, and I said some hurtful things, and so it took me like 2 days to, you know, think about everything that I said and all that, and I finally was like, you know, I'm really sorry for everything that I said. Like, what I said was hurtful. It was mean. It wasn't nice. It also wasn't me. It was my disorder that was making me go crazy. Like, you know, I don't feel it that way, and da-da-da-da. But a big thing is definitely like talking about your problems, even if it's like the next day, if you have to step away from the issue and, you know, put it aside for a day because it's just too much to deal with, you know, in the moment, come back to it. That's actually a DBT skill, I think, pushing aside something if it's too much to deal with. And so that's what we did. And, you know, we resolved it, and now everything's totally fine. So communication, I would say, is the biggest thing to make a relationship go. And it takes work. It takes practice, and it's not easy at all, especially with BPD. It's very hard.
Yeah. And I think that I just want to say thank you very much for sharing that with us, because it's very difficult. I agree. He probably could have talked to you before he called the police. So it's really, really tricky for you two during this time. So sounds like you've kind of got back on track. You've given yourself a little bit of time to settle down, clear your thinking, come back again, have an open, honest conversation, move through, which I wish so many more people would do, rather than just, just going straight over the top of the person and making them out like they're this, they're that, I've got nothing to do with it, I can't help, you guys handle it. So well done, both of you, because you're so young too, and it's just really amazing how you guys work with each other. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a partnership. It definitely is, you know. And we talked, I think, a little bit about personal responsibility yesterday, and that was like a prime example of where I had to, you know, apologize for things I've said, and then I had to communicate why I was upset. You know, I was more mad at myself for lashing out, but I was also upset that he didn't talk to me. And he understood that too. He understood, like, we had a genuine conversation. It was, we resolved it. So It's just, and
Yeah.
it's difficult, but it's
Really
definitely
difficult.
Yeah. Yep. But that's just like
Yeah,
that's
so
the most recent example I can think of where it's, you know, a tough time has happened, or, you know, a rocky patch in the relationship, and then you talk and you resolve and
move
things
through.
get better. Yeah.
So, and did he take on board what you had said to him as well about what you're needing in that situation too?
He understood where I was coming from, but he still thinks, like, he still doesn't think he was, like, wrong about calling 911. And I don't really disagree with him because, you know, if he had posted what I had posted and I read that, and, you know,
Okay.
it sounded really like I was in imminent danger. Although the next day, because he read it the next day. So I had posted something one night, and then he saw it the next day, and the next day I was totally fine, because that's how BPD is. You can be feeling suicidal one night, and then the next day you're happy, you're whatever, you want to do stuff. So it was just like, because I was in a good mood, and I thought we were having a fine day, and so that whole thing was just like dropped on me. But, and, you know, looking back, like, if he posted what I posted, I'd be like, you know, this is really urgent, she needs help, or he needs help, and, you know, I need to give it to him, even though he might not like me, or, you know. So I can understand where he's coming from, but I do still wish she would have said something to me. But
So
not
what's
like,
that?
there's no.
What's that like? What's that like for you, being in that space of having the suicidal stuff going on, and then somebody acting without kind of talking to you about what they're going to do? And then later on, when you're rethinking over it and going, well, yep, if that was me. But in the meantime, like, do you feel supported in that? And is that how you would want it to play out next time? Or would you want him to contact you and say, how are you now? Or what would you prefer?
Yeah, I talked about this with my therapist too, because she had asked me, like, you know, well, what would you have done? And I said I would have talked to him first. So I definitely, you know, I still feel like if that were to arise again, I think he knows to, like, you know, I would hope that he would come to me first and say, like, you know, what is this post about, or what are you talking about? What's going on? But sometimes it's like, I get both. I get my perception and I understand his, because, you know, he's kind of like alone in dealing with this, because a lot of people don't know how to, like, handle when things get really difficult like that. You know what I mean? Because it's, you know, not everybody's equipped to deal with those types of situations. And my friend was really concerned. And so I think she really was like, Connor, you have to take her to the hospital. She's talking about suicide. She's not safe. And I think that scared him so much that he didn't, you know, talk to me first. He just went right to calling the cops. And I was really, really angry at him. But I was also really angry for the things that I said, which is what I had to apologize for, because, you know, sometimes borderline can make you say things that you don't mean. And it's, you know, it's all about, you know, realizing that and being able to empathize afterwards. Because, I mean, I'll be honest, the night that it happened, when I was released from the hospital after 5 hours, we got into another little fight, and he said to me, he's like, try to step in my shoes for 1 second. And I was like, I literally couldn't. I could not empathize at that night, because I was so wrapped up in my own anger and stuff like that, that it was just, I couldn't think about anything else. And so it took me like a day and a half, 2 days to, like, have it settle and think about it. And so hopefully next time, I mean, hopefully there won't be a next time, but I mean, with borderline, you know, I'm not going to, you know, it probably will happen again. I would hope that he can talk to me first, and then we can go from there and figure things out.
Okay, so if you had a message for any of the young women who were sitting at home thinking, I've got this, I've got that, I'm not worthy, I'm never going to have a relationship, do you have any message for them to give them any kind of hope and something to look forward to?
Yeah, I think it's, people are 100% wrong when they say that, and it's sad to hear that people are very like hopeless about relationships and things like that. I mean, you definitely have to, work on yourself, but you also have to have faith that like there are people out there that are willing to walk with you through your journey and, through your struggles, and, you are lovable and you're a human just like everybody else. You just have a disorder that sometimes, interferes with your life, but, relationships are definitely possible. It takes work, especially with this disorder. It's not easy at all. I'm not going to lie and pretend like it's, a walk in the park. Like,
yeah,
it takes normal arguments to another level sometimes, but it's not impossible. I think, for the girls and women out there, like it's, there's definitely hope. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I do see young women in relationships, not as many doing the work that I would like them to do, but one of the things that I would suggest is to do what you said that you did yesterday, which is read up on it, get empowered, understand what's going on, do your work around it, be the best person that you can be, and just try and move forward, because how you feel about yourself is very much a projection that you put out in the world too. So if you, I'm not talking about you now, but some of the people that I see are just so down on themselves, they project that energy. So it's really difficult to love somebody who's feeling terrible about themselves. And I should say not love, you can still love them, but be in a relationship with someone who's feeling terrible about themselves. Because, and it's kind of unattractive as well. It's kind of like, let's focus on the great things about you that you can do instead of the not so great things that you're working on. We can still talk about them, because they're still all part of who you are, but they are not, basically, they don't make up the majority of who you are. And I think a lot of the time with mental health challenges, I think some people avoid people with mental health challenges. They think it's going to be too hard. But then what happens if that person needs a new lung, or, has to develops diabetes and gets their leg cut off? I mean, really, what's the difference? Exactly. 1 minute we might be having mental health stuff, 1 minute we might be having physical health stuff. What's the difference? Like we all just need to be kind of keeping that in mind, support each other no matter what. Love is love. The heart decides who we fall in love with, and how we work with that person is really, really important, and the skills that we learn. And I'm just really proud of you and your partner for just what you've told us too, and how you're getting through. And I keep coming back to the fact that you're only 21, like just amazing, Julia.
I had
when I was 21, I was just a nutcase. I was like,
that was my early teenage years. That's when I was like, oh my goodness. I was undiagnosed, obviously, and I was a wreck. But actually, the reason I started going to therapy was because Connor was in therapy. And I was like, okay, this might be a thing then. And so I went to therapy because I had failed out of college my first semester. And so I was depressed about that. And then all of a sudden you start talking about all these other things. And, I've been in therapy for like 4 years now, and I've switched therapists. But, it's a lot of dirty work and stuff like that. But the more you do work on yourself, and it's definitely not selfish, just a message for everybody. It's not selfish to work on yourself. It is essential, because without therapy, I don't think I could have, a functioning, healthy relationship where I can communicate, because therapy has a big part of therapy is learning to communicate. Even just talking to your therapist, that's communication right there. You know what I mean? So
I totally agree.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I became a therapist, is because I needed therapy when I was much younger. And I think yesterday we were talking about epigenetics,
Yep.
which is
Yep,
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we'll bring that into the conversation now. And I just wanted to say, hey, Zoe. So I just wanted to bring in the conversation now about epigenetics because have you got your book handy close to you? Because I think
I can grab it right over here.
I think that a lot of people, if they understood about epigenetics and the fact that a lot of the stuff that we carry isn't actually our stuff, like genetically we can be programmed from events and trauma that have happened to our parents and grandparents before us and their grandparents. And I've just had a little read here, and I'm just trying to find more of probably the layperson's stuff, because a lot of the stuff on epigenetics is pretty hard reading. If you're into hard reading about and research, go in. And I think yesterday I also talked about if you want to read research on anything that you're going through, you go to Google and type in Google Scholar, and that will actually take you to a lot of the scholarly articles and research papers on different mental health challenges. And I just wanted to read out a little bit about epigenetics and parenting. So epigenetic inheritance, especially transgenerational epigenetic inheritance, so basically any traits that are coming down through the previous generations, is an important topic in epigenetic research at the moment. So one of the questions they're asking is, do we pass down epigenetic marks to our children as a result of lifestyle or our behaviour or our trauma? So, and it's suggesting that, yes, absolutely, this is happening. So what's your book saying, your end? Because your book's really, really good too, actually.
Yeah, mine, it's definitely not like too technical, so it's very easy it's very easy read. Well, I've gone through and like highlighted, because I'm studying psychology, so like this is like a super like fast. I hope to be a therapist someday. That's my ultimate goal. So
you'll be great. You'll be great. You will. You'll be great, because you've got lived experience, and lived experience therapists are often really good.
Yes. Yes.
They get it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I just opened up to chapter 3. The very first paragraph says, to put it simply, we receive aspects of our grandmother's mothering through our own mother. The traumas our grandmother endured, her pains and sorrows, her difficulties in her childhood or with our grandfather, the losses of those she loved who died early, these filter to some degree into the mothering she gave to our mother. If we look back another generation, the same would likely be true about the mothering our grandmother received. So now it says, so this kind of goes into like the environmental aspect of it, I think. Yeah, it's not only what we inherit from our parents, but also how they were parented that influences how we relate to a partner, how we relate to ourselves, and how we nurture our children. For better or for worse, parents tend to pass on the parenting that they themselves received. These patterns appear to be hardwired into the brain and begin to be formed before we're even born. How our mother bonds with us in the womb is instrumental in the development of our neural circuitry. Thomas Verney, I think I'm pronouncing his last name right, I hope, says, from the moment of conception, the experience in the womb shapes the brain and lays the groundwork for personality, emotional temperament, and the power of higher thought. Like a blueprint, these patterns are transmitted more than learned. So,
so we're often...
well.
I think you're right, and I think that it's really, really interesting to realize that the stuff that's going on for us may have been brought down through the generations. So that's really, really interesting, because I know in my family we have a lot of trauma early on, especially with my grandmother, who's now passed, losing a child to cot death, and then there was a story around her just taking the baby into the hospital, which was miles away, and they just gave her a blanket and said gave her the baby blanket back and said just go home. And it's kind of like no grief counselling back then, no acknowledgement. And then, yeah, so that, I believe, has played a major impact on the kind of anxiety stuff in our family and not talking about things, because that was very much a pattern that was back then in that generation too. So it's just unbelievable trauma that was never worked through, and it just kind of like, oh my God. And then I think my mum was born 2 years to the date of that baby's death. So it's kind of like, what's happened in that?
Everywhere seems.
Absolutely. And it's also, it says here, the emotional ties between child and ancestors are essential to the development of our values. The bonds often determine the answers to myriad questions such as who am I to my family, who can we trust, who are our enemies, what ties me to my family. And the one up here, it says transgenerational transmissions take on life in our dreams, in acting out, in life lessons, given in turns of phrase. I mean, I can hear my mum coming through in my voice sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I better change that and not say that to my daughter ever again. Because it's just a phrase that's come through, you know, that nobody's really ever challenged or thought about, and they just use it. And it's just freaky. So
I can imagine.
Yeah. So and we know one of the stories that I've just read here was with one of the 9/11 survivors. So they had experienced a really huge impact trauma over there, and then at that moment, every time they thought about it or went anywhere near the building, if they would grab their children and hold their hands, and all of a sudden the children would be like, oh, okay, here's the fear. It's coming through Dad now. And like, so anything to do with that was grabbed onto by the child, and it was a really subtle indicator that this is how they're feeling, and then it kind of goes into you, and you're sort of, and then you don't even understand really what's going on, but you pick it up. So it's all these really subtle stuff that goes on in families that we don't understand, and some of it, unfortunately, leads to the more serious conditions, and which we won't talk about with you, and because there's a lot of stuff that's private that we don't want to be talking about on here. But I just wondered, do you want to, there's, according to the DSM, which is the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual, which is like the Bible for psychs, there's nine different criteria that meets borderline personality disorder, and then there's others saying that there's 12. So I wanted to know, would you like to go through a couple of them, because I wanted to see whether these actually are ticking your boxes, because it sort of gives people an indicator of how different we all are, and when people present in front of us and we're looking for different traits and we're asking different questions, trying to get to the diagnosis end, often it's all over the place. So, and one day you might have some, the other day you might not. So, and like we talked about yesterday, you might be going through teenagehood and have other things coming in that look like traits of borderline and or not, and blah, blah, blah. So, one of the symptoms... and I think yesterday we talked about one of the therapists calling it angry young girl syndrome or something, was it?
It was angry teenage girl syndrome is what borderline is, apparently. Yeah, but she also, I was going to say earlier when you were talking about my age, she thought I was 28 years old. Not because I look it, but because like when she first met me, that's the impression she got. I was like, no, and my current therapist thought I was like, she was like, I keep thinking you're like 30. I'm like, no. Not far from it, but I mean,
maybe you're an old soul, Julia.
I get, I've been told that a lot. I'm an old soul, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
No, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, that's interesting.
My cat is like really like he's literally right here on my legs, clawing me. I need to just get something to occupy him, and then we can resume.
Okay,
And
okay. All
I'm
right, well, do
sorry.
you
He's
want to
just
go
being a
feed
pain.
him? Do you want to go feed him, and I'll just go through some of the symptoms for borderline, and I'll just talk about them a little bit. So,
Yeah.
one
Um,
of
should I like? Do you want me to like elaborate or anything? Or do you just want to go
Well,
like
I
through
think
them?
when you move the Wi-Fi cuts out a bit, so it's a little bit. Do you want to
Okay.
go feed him and then come back? Yeah, so pretty much. So there's about 4 million people in America living with borderline personality disorder, and BPD is a very misunderstood disorder, and I think it's often for the people that I work with, the patients that I see, often it can be as stigmatized as people living with schizophrenia, and that bothers me. So it's another reason why it was really important to be talking to Julia today. So, because she's so articulate and she's such a warrior, and she's so amazing when it comes to talking about her mental health, and she's got this amazing voice, and she's really at a just, I can't even remember what I was like at 21, but I was not anywhere near as empowered as Julia, and I just didn't have a voice, and I didn't have the knowledge around this stuff either. So the fact that I'm able to actually talk to her is just makes my heart so happy that this generation are coming through and doing this work. So how's Kitty now, Julia?
Oh, I gave him food and he is eating up. I
Okay.
think he's just hungry. I think he's being kind of bitey, and like I normally feed him at like between 7 and 7:30, and I got home kind of late, so and I wanted to do this really bad, but then he was like all over me. I'm like, oh, I just gotta feed you. So he's okay now. He'll probably come back and be wild, but it'll be okay.
All
He's
right.
still
So,
young.
oh yeah. Well, mine's sound asleep on the couch. She's got 3 legs. She
Oh,
was thrown out of a car and broke 3 bones in her body, so they had to amputate because I'm on the animal shelter committee up
yeah.
here. So anyway, she ended up here. She's sound asleep on the couch.
Well, I'm sure she
She's
gets
super
lots of
cute.
love with you.
She's crazy. I'm a dog and horse person,
Yeah.
but and then we've got this cat. So and then the other cat that lives here who bites everybody who moves.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, she doesn't like me one bit. She knows that I'm a dog and a horse girl, but she knows that.
Cats can pick up
So
on things like that.
yeah. Yeah, she bit me in the middle of the night when I was asleep. Now, what's that
Oh
about?
my goodness.
I know.
Jeez. She really does not like you then.
No, she bit my daughter's boyfriend in the middle of the night too, so something's going on there. She needs
Oh my
therapy, cat
goodness.
therapy.
Wow. Yeah.
She's obviously seething with resentment about something.
Yeah,
But
right?
so okay, so if I can go through the symptoms of BPD. So one of them is fear of abandonment. So does that resonate with you, Julia?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. Do you want to talk about how that manifests? And because sometimes that manifests with me too, but I'm just aware, I make sure that I'm aware of the thoughts that are coming through, and I don't kind of follow them and chase them down into a space where I'm thinking everyone's going to leave, my husband's going to leave, I'm like going to be left alone, and then start catastrophizing down that channel, which some people can do with abandonment stuff. So
Yeah.
how does it manifest with you?
Well, with Connor, that's like, my closest and number one relationship. I feel very secure. I don't think he's, I don't fear abandonment with him at all. But with like other people, that I do form attachments to, I definitely am like, I become terrified. I have, delusional thoughts. Like if someone doesn't like, message me or text me for a few days, I'm like, okay, this person forgot about me, they hate me, and they don't like me. I must have said something wrong or done something to like make them not like me. Just typical just thoughts like that aren't true, but I have them nonetheless. So that's how it manifests.
And does the cognitive behavior therapy help you with that?
Yeah, it definitely does. I haven't done it in a while. I probably should, because actually my fear abandonment has been acting up with certain people. I used to have this, I still do somewhere in the house, a sheet which just goes down like a list of questions, like what is the thought? What is the evidence to back that thought? What would a friend say about that thought? Just basically taking the thought that you have and changing the perspective about it and putting it into like rational, making your thinking rational again, because it's a distortion. The fear of abandonment is, often a distorted view. It's imagined.
Yeah.
For me, it's imagined half the time, pretty much. So.
Yeah. It's really, really a tricky thing to live with. Some people I know, some of my friends, never enters their head. I just think, oh, that must be so good.
Yeah.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
Really?
I know, like, what is it like?
One of my other friends, she has abandonment stuff too, and she says every time anybody's around her, it doesn't matter how long she's in a relationship, she's still expecting them to walk out the door, like 40 years later. So it's just something that's just ingrained in her, and whether that's coming through epigenetically or something from her childhood that's being triggered, only therapy can kind of figure out. And I keep suggesting it to her, and hopefully she'll go in and talk to somebody about it so she can understand where it comes from, and then do some work around the thoughts. Definitely. Or else they just trap us forever and we don't understand, and we're going to stay in that tortured headspace. Never good. So
place to be.
So the next one's unstable self-image. So identity disturbances. Sometimes people with BPD may feel good about themselves, but other times they may feel not so good about themselves. Does that resonate with you too?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think it's gotten better. Like I've learned, like personal, like things that I value and stuff like that. But it's still in like other ways, like if I meet somebody new and I really like them or whatever, and I want to be their friend or something, I might find myself, listening to music that they like, or like, trying to just do things that I think that they might like about me or something like that. I think that's kind of how it manifests for me. And I'm aware of it, but it kind of sucks that I'm aware of it, because I still do it, and I sometimes don't know how to stop doing it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely,
It's really interesting, because a lot of these things, anyone who's listening are probably going, oh, I've got shades of this. I do that. It's kind of like when I first met my husband, he told me that he liked Clerks 2, the movie. And I'm like, Clerks 2? Oh, my God, I've never watched that. I better go get it. So I went and bought it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, my God, I like this guy so much. I got to brush up on Clerks, but I never, ever actually watched it.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And he says to me, he's so funny, because I'm like, hey, yeah, Clerks 2. Yeah, I've got a copy of that. Here it is. And he thought I was so cool. And then a couple of years down the track, he's like, I remember on Clerks 2 when that happened. And I went, no.
That's when you're like comfortable to be like, yeah, I never liked it in the first place, like ever.
I never even watched it.
Yeah.
He's like, well, what was that about? And I said, I just really liked you, so I just wanted to see what you're into. So it's really tricky, especially when there's love involved. Like, you want to know what they're into. You want to kind of do that stuff.
Oh yeah, when I first started dating Connor, I mean, he used to love the show How I Met Your Mother, and I pretended like I liked it, and I hated it every time we watched it. But I think, like, you know, I think in any relationship, whether you have BPD or not, like, you kind of do, you know, try to, like, get into what they're into, maybe to some degree, but then sometimes it's, like, abnormal. Like, when it becomes abnormal, that's when it's, like, a problem. But, like, so, like, my whole, like, persona changed when I was first with him. Like, I was, like, because he was kind of, like, you know, he was kind of preppy, like the way he dressed really nicely, and, you know, he always looked really sharp and stuff like that. So I would, like, you know, my whole wardrobe changed. Like, I was always trying to dress, like, all professionally and, like, you know, nice. And, like, I'm like, this is so not me, but I'm going to do it anyway. And, like, now I'm comfortable enough. I'm like, yeah, I am not like that. Here's the real me. Here's all the baggage. I'm sorry. And yeah. And it's, like, think funny, but it's, like, at the same time, it's like you put up this facade in the beginning because you want them so badly to like you. And then, like, you know, after however many months or years, whatever, they come to find out, like, okay, you're not the person that I started dating, but now I'm in love with you anyway. And that's kind of what happened with Connor and I. I'm like, do you still love me after, like, all these things that I, like, pretended about or something? He's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, because I know the real you now, and I love you. So it's a little sappy thing right there, but definitely relate.
Yeah, we're funny. We're funny when we first start in relationships, aren't we? I was pretending I was the best cook around, and then I delivered him toast that was still frozen in the middle. Like, I can't cook. But, like, I thought that if I told him that I was a good cook, and I remember him looking at me going, I thought you said you could cook, but he's like, burn my toast and it's still frozen in the middle. I'm like,
how does that even work?
The toast was really thick. So I don't know. I think we've just got to be who we are, and if they like us, they like us. If they don't, see ya, next.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's taken a long time to get to that point, you know, and I've been married for quite a while now, so I don't know what, if anything happened, I don't know what I'd be like. So I think the next one is impulsive or risky behaviours that often self-destructive behaviours are also common, they're saying here. So things, and really, you don't really have to answer this in too much detail, but yeah, does that just impulsive, does that just resonate with you at all?
Oh yeah, yep, absolutely.
Okay.
If I wasn't broke right now, I would probably be spending so much money just when I, you know, need it for other things. I drive recklessly when I'm angry. Other things, like in the past, like I've abused drugs and alcohol. That was, you know, very impulsive and risky. Other behaviors too. So I won't go too far into it, like you said. But
no.
But yes, it does resonate.
And the next one's self-harm and suicide. I don't expect you to be answering this one whatsoever. I'm just going to mention it because I don't think we need to talk about that at all.
Okay.
Mood swings. So does that resonate with you? You don't have to give examples, Julia, just like...
Just yeah or no. Yeah. It does. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, because I want to protect you, and I don't really feel like everybody needs to know everything. Yeah. So feelings of emptiness. So for the gentleman who's just, the woman, I can't really tell, T. James, who's just joined the conversation, we're talking about borderline personality disorder and all the different things that go around with that. So welcome to the chat. And so chronic feelings of emptiness, Julia, is the next one. So says there's a hole or a void inside some people who have some of the traits of BPD.
Yes, absolutely.
Does that resonate with you? Yeah.
Yep.
Explosive is the next one. So you can be kind of, well, who doesn't, but like sometimes, depending on what's going on. Explosive can be, you know.
Yeah. Yes. 100%.
Now this one here, paranoia and disassociation.
Yes, both.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the next one is, the next page that I'm on here is just about genetics. So it's saying that BPD is believed to be caused by a combination of factors, one of which is genetics. So someone in your family, such as a parent, has been diagnosed with BPD. The genes you inherit may make you more vulnerable to developing BPD, but so far there's no evidence of a BPD gene, so genetics might make you more vulnerable to developing it, but it's often due to stressful or traumatic life experiences that these vulnerabilities are triggered. So, and we know that by working on the symptoms around BPD, that if you do that, then it's not likely to be inherited by your kids. So, yeah, that's a pretty interesting thing. So you're not likely to pass it down, but it might be there if there's another trauma for the child, and it might start to come through, is what they're saying here. So basically we've got to do our work so that we're not passing this stuff down to the next generation, really.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Do you agree? I know you agree with that, because we talked about that yesterday. Yeah.
Yes.
So because this is a new show, do you want to quickly go through SEMPI with me so that we can, I know you went through it yesterday, but just so that we can show other people how it works?
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I know it's backwards. We're on Instagram. It's very annoying. I've looked for everything I can to turn the camera around. It's just not happening. So, sorry,
okay.
Read backwards. So basically, the SEMPI social communication model is developed. So if you're sitting with anyone and you ask them, are you okay? And they actually say no, or I'm not sure, you can actually go through this with them instead of going, oh, okay, I don't know what to do in this situation. This is way too big for me. Go get some help yourself. So basically this model shows you quite quickly and easily how to just sit with somebody, and it goes through sleep, emotions, meet your needs, physical health and inclusion, all in the one pamphlet. So at the moment this is being distributed across America. It's going into homeless shelters, hospitals, hospices, schools, churches. It's going out to Iraq, to the American soldiers, and I'm just actually in talks with a woman from one of the big mental health hospitals in Ontario in Canada about getting it into there for people. Yeah, thanks, Julia. So getting it into people to be able to come in and pick up one of these and take it in and talk to their loved ones about it. And it's a reciprocal model, so the person in hospital can also ask them how's their SEMPI. So if I say, okay, so how's your SEMPI, Julia? So let's look at how was your sleep last night? How did you sleep, hun?
Last night.
Oh, I've just lost you a little bit. So I'll just wait for Julia to come back. Okay, you back? You back?
Yeah, it never left on my screen. That was weird.
Oh, okay.
There's
Yeah, I suppose Australia or America.
Like the frequency.
Okay.
I don't know. I just looked a few minutes ago. There's a big flash outside my window. I'm like, oh my goodness! And then I realized it was just lightning. So, and then I heard thunder. So Andy's all tucked next to me, scared.
Oh goodness me! Yeah. Okay. So if we see a big flash, we'll know it's kind of lightning coming in.
Yes.
I'm not. Okay. Yes. So how was your sleep last night, Julia?
My sleep was good last night. It was good.
Okay. So when you started to go to sleep, did any thoughts keep you awake at all?
No, I don't think so. I think I fell right asleep.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes when we ask, especially school students about sleep, one of the ones, for example, told me about how she just was not wanting to go to sleep because she was dreading going to school the next day because she was being really, really bullied, and somebody had actually made up a whole page on Facebook just about her. So she was dreading going to school because she knew everybody was actually going to know about it. So when we ask the students, how did you sleep last night, this is a big factor. One of my other students said that he's freezing because he's sleeping in the caravan because Dad's kicked him out because he didn't like the way he spoke to his mum. I was like, okay. So then in the school system we can do something about this, but if we're in the hospitals and we ask people how was your sleep overall in the last night, they can actually talk to us about that, because when you're in hospital recovering from operations or your family's not visiting, if you're in a nursing home or whatever, then sleep is really pivotal. So it's really, really important, that question. So we'll go on to E for emotion, which is the next one. That's the red. Are you feeling any upsetting emotion at the moment, Julia?
No, not at this moment.
Okay, good. So an example would be, are you crying, are you withdrawn, are you unsettled, or you're just not sure how you're feeling? So if you answered anything to this, then we'd go through the next set of questions together. But because you're feeling pretty good at the moment, I'll jump over to meet your needs. So I know that it's getting pretty late there where you are now. So have you had enough to eat and drink today?
Still
okay, so
I get hungry after dinner, so I kind of will probably eat a little snack or something after this.
Sorry, I didn't hear any of that.
Oh, my Wi-Fi. Let me see if my Wi-Fi is on.
So we ask about M for meet your needs, because that's basically talking about whether you've had enough food, water, and whether you've got enough clothing. So that's what M, meet your needs, stands for. So when we're working with people who are homeless, this is huge, because often they'll say, the only meal I've had today was at the Exodus Foundation in Sydney and I had lunch. And basically I have nothing else to eat until tomorrow morning at lunch, tomorrow lunch when I go back there. So that's huge for them. And yeah, so often the support workers will put something into place there. But people who are under a lot of stress and crisis or having a lot of trauma in their lives, women in domestic violence will often stop eating. And eating is pivotal to good brain function and allowing you to just be able to cope with the emotions that are coming through and the work that you need to do. So stopping eating is a bad idea. So that's why we also check out the eating. So, sorry, what did you say about eating, Julia? Because yesterday you hadn't had a lot to eat and it was really late, and because of the interview, you'd kind of missed dinner. You didn't eat till 10 p.m. or something.
My dinner last night, which is not, I've heard it's not good to eat past 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock or something, but I was like, I need to eat. But no, I've eaten dinner tonight, but I always get a little hungry after dinner, for a little snack, so I'll probably end up having something like pretzels or something after this, or a yogurt or something. Okay,
I eat Weet Bix with honey on them, or Vegemite. Yeah.
Nice.
So P stands for physical health. So how's your physical body feeling at the moment, Julia?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, are you noticing any unusual symptoms or any pain in your body at all today?
No. Last night we went over this. I was having persistent nausea, but that's subsided, and I think it's because I was taking Advil, which is really harsh on your stomach, and I have a sensitive tummy, so I think I haven't taken it, so it's getting better.
Okay, so we often ask how's your physical body feeling, because this is a really good question for anyone who's in hospital or anyone who's just, a lot of the corporates actually that I talk to when I ask them this question, people who work in corporate, some of the lawyers and stuff, they're like, well, I've had a migraine for a couple of weeks. It's just
I was
not
gonna
going
say,
away.
headaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. They probably have like persistent migraines. Like, oh, I could not imagine.
Yeah, and they're like, nobody ever asks me this question, and I don't have time to go to the doctor, and I'm the main breadwinner in the house.